Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about video games. Hello everyone! It's the end of the year and I'm taking some time to look back at my 10 favorite games that were released in 2017. This has been called one of the best years in gaming, with huge, critically acclaimed releases like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn. You're not going to find any of these games on my list. I played a total of 30 games that were released in 2017, and here are my favorites. Starting out at number 10, it's the spiritual successor to one of my favorite games of all time. It's Torment: Tides of Numenera. In Exile Entertainment's Torment: Tides of Numenera asks, what does one life matter? You take on the role of the last cast-off, the most recent vessel for the changing god, whose consciousness moves from body to body in an attempt to outrun mortality. This is an RPG that is all about the writing, story, and world building, and the world building is some of the best I've seen. Every character you talk to has a unique story to share with you, and the locations you visit throughout the game are fascinating. Though the game's eventual message is that one person may not be able to change the world, at least not in the way they'd expect, each decision point felt important and made me weigh my options with care. Number 9 is one of the only AAA releases on this list, and it was one of my most anticipated games of the year. It's Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Wolfenstein 2 by Machine Games puts us back in the boots of BJ Blazkowicz, and this time he's in an even more dire situation than before. Nazis have taken over America, and BJ is terribly injured after the events of the first game. But the fight must go on. The story and characters here are what kept me motoring through the game, even though I found the level design had taken a step back from the first entry. Meeting new characters like the fantastic Grace and getting to know the original characters better, including learning about BJ's past, had me completely enraptured. The violent, action-packed set pieces were wonderfully cathartic, and I sure do love vaporizing Nazis with the laser craftwork. The New Colossus lets you ignite a resistance movement, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the next game. Number 8 is another spiritual successor to a favorite of mine, and it brings back the best of LucasArts. It's Thimbleweed Park. Thimbleweed Park was developed by Terrible Toy Box, and it brings the classic, humor-filled point-and-click adventures of the past to the present. In this game, you get to play as 5 different characters, as they deal with the murder that has happened in the odd town of Thimbleweed Park. This includes a pair of FBI agents, a washed-up cursed clown, a game developer, and a ghost. The game is full of jokes, references, classic inventory puzzles, and a wonderful tribute to pixel hunting. It also features a much-appreciated addition. Every character has a to-do list, so you don't forget what you're supposed to be doing. This is a must-play if you're a fan of the old LucasArts adventures. Number 7 is an expansion to one of my top games from last year, and it breathes new life into an already great game. XCOM 2 War of the Chosen by Firaxis ups the ante on an already quite stressful resistance movement against the aliens who have taken over Earth. This expansion increases the impact of the storytelling by giving you other rebel factions to discover and work with, and new enemies to fight, each of which is introduced in a somewhat scripted story mission. The Chosen are 3 powerful aliens who will hound you throughout the game, capture your soldiers if you let them, and function as boss fights to add a little more intensity to missions. The game was full of memorable battle moments, made more memorable by giving the soldiers a little more personality through things like bonds between them and propaganda posters used to commemorate successful missions and new ranks. War of the Chosen made XCOM 2 feel like a more complete game, where the stakes were even higher, and it's the game I spent the most time with this year. My pick for number 6 is a narrative adventure game that focuses on art, the creative process, and overcoming fear and uncertainty. It's the Lion Song.
Developed by Mipumi Games, The Lion Song is a character-focused game that takes place in Austria in the early 1900s. Each of its 4 episodes focuses on one person. First, we meet Wilma, a composer searching for inspiration. Next is Franz, a man with the gift of being able to see a person's true essence and the ability to bring it to life in a painting. Then there's Emma, a mathematician struggling to have her voice heard on a subject dominated by men. The 4th and final episode connects the previous storylines together. The Lion Song is a beautiful look at creating that shows that inspiration can come from anywhere and that self-doubt can impact even the most talented people. Though the game doesn't really have any puzzles, the decisions you make along the way impact the stories of the characters you meet, some in large ways, and some in tiny changes you'll only see if you're really paying attention. This isn't a game that's gotten a ton of attention, and it was an unexpected treat.
Number 5 is a stunning game with a fantastic soundtrack that features some of the hardest decisions I've had to make in a game. It's Pyre.
Supergiant Games makes beautiful, impactful experiences, and their 3rd effort, Pyre, is no exception. It's a difficult game to categorize, as it's not really like anything else I've played. You play a character who has been exiled, who teams up with others to try to get back home. To do this, you have to participate in rites, which are kind of like 3-on-3 basketball games, where you need to extinguish the other team's pyre by launching an orb at it. Though these rites took a while to grow on me, the surrounding story, characters, and world completely charmed me. As you travel from rite to rite, you learn more about your companions and make decisions that will influence how their stories resolve. Near the end of the game, there were often times I felt paralyzed by the decisions I had to make, because I loved all my companions and wanted the best for them, but knew it wasn't going to be possible. So while this is a story of redemption, it's also about sacrifice and loss.
Number 4 has set a very high standard for computer role-playing games. It's Divinity Original Sin 2.
Larian Studios created something good with Divinity Original Sin back in 2014. But with its sequel, they've created something great. This is one of the most ambitious games I've played. The world is huge, it's filled with hundreds of characters, and every line of dialogue is voiced. Of the dozens and dozens of quests, none of them are boring or repetitive, and most can be solved in a multitude of ways. The party and player characters are all lovingly created and very interesting. I played through as Fane, a fancy skeleton man who can steal people's faces and decide which race he wants to appear as. He can pick locks with his bony finger and makes a lot of jokes about the joys of being undead. The other characters I played with are similarly wonderful, like a demon-possessed bard and an elf assassin who can eat flesh to gain abilities from the dead. Gross, but also pretty cool. Usually, once a game starts approaching 30 or 40 hours, I start losing interest, but Divinity's story, dialogue, puzzles, and amazing turn-based strategic combat kept my interest for the full 56 hours it took me to finish it. This has really raised the bar for role-playing games.
Number 3 is a real high-class bout. It's Cuphead.
Studio MDHR's Cuphead caused quite a stir from the time it was first announced at E3 way back in 2014. Finally, in June of 2017, it released, and it was worth the wait. Paying homage to 30s-style cartoons with wonderful hand-drawn animations and a jazzy soundtrack, Cuphead looks unique amongst all the other games that came out this year. It's a game that is unapologetically retro, but it doesn't use pixel art to induce 80s and 90s nostalgia. Instead, it does it with genre and difficulty. Cuphead is part run-and-gun and part horizontal scrolling shooter, two genres which don't get nearly enough love anymore. And it's tough. Usually, I get frustrated easily, and games that sell themselves on difficulty hold little appeal to me. But something about Cuphead makes me want to get better, to learn boss patterns, to try over and over until I can do it. And when I defeat a particularly challenging boss, like the Matchstick Dragon or Dr. Call's robot, I feel accomplished, throw my arms up in the air, and yell triumphantly. Cuphead is a real joy to play.
My pick for number 2 is a game that is expertly crafted, emotionally affecting, and elevates a genre that often faces derision. It's What Remains of Edith Finch.
Giant Sparrow's What Remains of Edith Finch is a hauntingly beautiful look at family, death, and secrets. As Edith Finch, you return to your family home for the first time in years. The Finch family is cursed, or so the belief goes. Almost all of them meet an unfortunate and untimely end, and the matriarch of the family keeps their rooms frozen in time as shrines. As you explore the house, which guides you through its rooms and secret passages in a masterful way, you discover how each person died. Aside from the great writing and narration, the game excels by presenting each story in a completely different way. In one, you're an infant, with an active imagination experiencing joy in everything. In another, you're a man working in a fish cannery. While your body does the repetitive motion of decapitating fish on a conveyor belt, your mind is exploring and adventuring through magical worlds. Through its short runtime, What Remains of Edith Finch managed to make me feel joy, wonder, and sorrow, as well as consider how curses can sometimes be self-made.
And now my favorite game of the year. It's one that didn't get nearly as much attention as it should have, but it had me feeling jazzed the whole way through. It's The Sexy Brutale.
The Sexy Brutale, by Cavalier Game Studios and Tequila Works, is set on a single, endlessly looping day at a lavish party where the staff are out to kill the guests. As the single character pulled out of this time loop, you need to try to save everyone by finding out how they'll be murdered and preventing it from happening. You have to explore the mansion, spy on predators and prey, find secrets, and make the most of your ability to control time. You also get access to new supernatural powers as you save people. The game is stylish and colorful, with a great soundtrack and a wonderfully macabre sense of humor. Puzzling out how to stop each murder, sometimes 2 at a time, is very satisfying. The game is also propped up by a mysterious, overarching story that comes together slowly as you put all the pieces together. The Sexy Brutale is a wild ride and a must-play for fans of adventure, mysteries, and puzzles.
So, those are my favorite games of 2017. Let me know what you think and what some of your favorite games were in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a very happy new year.